I think the word consistency
Right.
is the number one word lacking in our health today, because sure, we're eating and we're taking supplements, but there's still that inconsistency, especially amongst our consumers, that they want the magic bullet, right? There's nothing magic about this. It takes time.
Today I'm joined by two very special guests, Dr. Darren Starkey, Manager of Education and Training, and Ariadne Lemire, Director of Sales for Canada at Trace Minerals. Now, if you haven't heard about Trace Minerals, you are going to learn everything there is to learn about them today in this episode. Trace Minerals is a Utah-based brand with over 50 years expertise in foundational minerals. Dr. Starkey shares why trace minerals are essential to maintaining our health and the reason we can no longer rely on our raw diets and our regular water alone to ensure proper daily mineral intakes. Dr. Starkey also will demonstrate the power of remineralization with their hero product called ConcenTrace, a concentrate of 72 various trace minerals. He will show how minerals affect our pH, the pH in our water, conducting electricity in our cells, and how quickly it is dissolved, therefore absorbing into the body. Ariadne will also share her personal story on using ConcenTrace and on how she was able to clear up her skin. So get ready. This is a jam-packed episode with a lot of great information. Welcome, Dr. Darren Starkey and Ariadne Lemire. Thank you for being part of this podcast. I'm so looking forward to everything you have to share about trace minerals and how important they are to our daily diet and why we're missing them. And Dr. Starkey is going to do a little presentation for us. So I'm so looking forward to just diving into this. So let's begin. What are minerals? Like, we talk about all kinds of vitamins or protein, carbs, but we don't really know what minerals are.
I believe that minerals in general, there's two different categories. And I believe that most people, we hear a lot about the more macro minerals, but there's also the micro as micro minerals that are more the trace minerals. So to say what in terms of physiology and biology, what is a mineral, it's basically a cofactor in that helps the enzyme do its work in the body. So it is as essential because it's somewhat of a puzzle that if we're missing a piece, then the whole puzzle cannot be finished. So it's very essential. The macro minerals are the ones that often when we travel around the world and we meet with consumers, they're very much aware because there's often the ones that we hear the most: calcium, magnesium, the sodium potassium pump for electrolytes. These ones are very well known, but the trace minerals, the micro minerals, are more those ones that are needed in less than 100 milligrams.
So what are some trace minerals?
So we've got iron, we've got zinc that falls in that category. Copper falls in there too. Selenium, manganese. Those are all the small ones.
I wouldn't think iron would be a trace mineral because so many people are deficient in iron.
Fascinating that you say that, because that is absolutely true. Iron's considered a trace mineral in nature, but we in society today are asked to take it in large amounts because of health conditions that we're very aware of, right? But what I love to share with that is, and Ariadne's heard me say this 100 times, I say anemia, we think iron, but we don't stop to think. You show me in nature where you can eat a seed, a nut, a grain, a fruit, or a vegetable, or a piece of protein that just has iron, right? And yet in iron, because it's classified as a trace mineral, we don't need much of it. But one of the key pieces behind how these trace minerals work is that there's an element called molybdenum. that helps release that iron from the liver. And that's kind of that lock and key mechanism. So that's how these minerals help support one another back and forth. And at that point, we don't need a lot of iron. We just need that full spectrum and balance. And that's the key that these trace minerals bring to our health.
So molybdenum, is that how you
Mo-
said it? Like I've
molybdenum.
seen that in vitamins, like vitamins and minerals, but you don't see that just on its own, or I
Correct.
don't.
Yeah.
So I did not know that that releases iron in our system,
Yep.
and it's like trace amounts.
That's where those little infinitesimal amounts of these elements can cause such an amazing result within the body. And of course, Ari and I will talk more about that as we move through this information with you.
Hmm. So Ariane, how would I know I'm lacking these trace minerals? What would be symptoms?
Yes, for sure. I mean, there are so many symptoms that we experience every single day. Brittle nails or hair breaks very easy. Sometimes it's a simple sign that we need more zinc,
Mhm.
or when we hurt ourselves and we have a hard time healing, that could be also a sign of zinc deficiency. One that's very well known in general is, muscle cramps. Muscle cramps, sometimes everything that has to do with relaxation in the body often is linked to magnesium. So these are very easy signs that we often all experience that can just show that there's a mineral deficiency somewhere in our body.
Hmm. But how would they know? Like you're saying, muscle cramps. Magnesium is a big one right now. Everyone's coming in to get it for sleeping. Iron, yes, for women, having menstrual cycles. Yeah, here's what I'm getting at my store. So women coming in, no energy,
Mhm.
thyroid issues, losing hair, brittle nails, so they run to vitamin D. Iodine is another big one too,
That's a big one.
that,
Yep.
postmenopausal women, they think, oh, I don't need iron because I don't have my period anymore. And so I love what ConcenTrace does, having those trace minerals. Like you said, they're cofactors. People don't always know what cofactors are and what it does in their body. Another one that comes to mind is chromium. So blood sugar, insulin is an enzyme. If we could just bring these nutrients on a daily basis, how would you suggest people do that? Like, you don't know what it is, so just grab it
Exactly, the
all.
ConcenTrace for sure. Our product, the ConcenTrace, is first it's a liquid form, so we do not produce it, we harvest it from the Great Salt Lake. So
Mm.
because it comes from the Great Salt Lake, which is an old sea that closed off over time, and there's mountains around, what happens is that it trickles down and it brings all the minerals to the bottom, and we're able to harvest it. So when we analyze the brine, we get at least 72 different minerals in the right proportion, which is, one of the most beautiful thing Mother Nature could give us, that we are now putting back in bottle. Obviously we've done all the tests to make sure there's no contaminants, and it's put back in pure water. And because it is in a liquid form, often in our field, what we talk about is not just what we take, but it's what we're able to absorb, what's bioavailable by the body. So because this is in oligoelement form and it is in a liquid form, as soon as we consume it, we absorb it. And Dr. Starkey will demonstrate a bit later with a totally dissolved test how actually it is quickly dissolved and we can absorb it. So the way to take this product is simply to add a few drops into your water or any sort of drink that the person likes to drink on a daily basis.
As simple. And it's
Very
5 to 10 drops a day.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
And
what we like to suggest is you get your system used to it. So you start slow, 5 drops in the morning the first week, 5 drops in the afternoon, and then we increase over time to ideally get to 40 drops in a day.
wow.
Everyone has a different system, so we're all the same, but at the same time all different. We have different tolerances, so it's important to start slow to see what is your tolerance.
Hmm. Well,
Yeah,
and I would think too, like doing it morning, afternoon, say evening, you get that afternoon slump, might
exactly.
just pick you up, and that
is that it will give you energy, or
Mhm.
it will help with the whole metabolic process in your body that gives energy. So we recommend usually to take it morning, after, through the day, but avoid taking it right before going to bed because it
Sure.
gives energy.
Makes sense. So
Yeah.
it's just minerals. So there's no B vitamins, no vitamin C. It's coming from nature. And yeah, so the body knows what to do with nature, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, and we absorb it nicely. And not only that, a lot of our food, like the soil, is depleted of any minerals. So, ultra processed foods, it's devoid, and it's processed. And then they have to add it back in, but it's synthetic, where this is natural.
Exactly.
So, Dr. Starsky, you wanted to do a demonstration, and I'm dying to see it.
That is a perfect segue of what you just
Oh,
said
good.
right there. One of the things I love to share with our consumers or our physicians or our nutritionists is that we got to take everything back to the kitchen table. That's
Right,
where
right.
it's been in the first place. So
Yeah.
what I would
So,
love to do for those that can't see, I'm going to let
okay,
Vicky,
so he's pulling up a table of fruits
fruits and
and
vegetables,
and
right?
that's yeah, and then what is the other thing, that light conduit?
Yeah, so this is like an open circuit. This is like an on and off switch that's been open, and it's like a lamp, right? So you have a
Okay.
positive negative charge. And what I like to do is I like to explain this, by the way.
Okay.
The scientific definition of death is not when our heart stops beating. It's when all that electrical impulse in our brain ceases.
So what's in that little cup? Just
That is
water?
alfalfa. Alfalfa. I put,
Oh,
I put water, so I put just regular tap water, and we'll
okay.
talk about that. And then I put alfalfa, the grandmaster of all land plants because of its
Hmm.
root system, right?
Yes.
And I
Hmm.
put that positive negative charge, and it closes that circuit. And guess
And the
what?
light bulb goes on.
Light
Yes.
bulb goes on.
Yeah, so there's
So
no hydro, no nothing. It's how much energy is in that alfalfa.
so what's the mineral content of that of that
Hmm.
plant, right?
Hmm.
So what I'd like to do is I'd like to take the concept of these trace minerals and bring it back to, for instance, how many times in our life have we heard that phrase coming from our parents or our grandparents, eat your fruits and vegetables because they're good for you, right?
Right. Right.
And yet I'm going to take that positive negative charge, and as you see, I'm going to put it into a banana.
Okay. And oh, the light bulb, it's dimly lighting up. So yeah,
Okay.
it's struggling.
How about a potato? We've all heard the potato
Potato,
watch.
yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing. It's dimly lit. That alfalfa was the brightest.
So right here we have a
Orange. Oh, nothing.
Often
Nothing.
depending on where it comes
well,
from, right?
yeah.
Sure. How
How long
many
it
trucks it
traveled.
was on before it came to your place?
I love when our consumers say I eat a healthy diet. I ask the question, where's the food grown?
Hmm.
Where's that food coming from? And that's not what, so there's a lot of questions. And here's a pepper, a red pepper.
Nothing. Absolutely
A
nothing.
little
Oh,
pepper,
there it's starting to come
right?
now.
How
Yeah.
about a carrot? It's a
Nothing.
that
Oh, yeah, very little.
It
Very
takes a bit of
little.
time, but
and the apple a day that kept the doctor away, right?
Okay.
So here's our apple. I'm gonna put
Yeah.
that
And nothing.
point
This
of
is
my
not a trick, everybody. Like,
no.
this is real.
yeah, it's a real apple.
I love the concept, the apple a day that kept the doctor away, but I think we have to go back to that statement. It's not what the apple tastes like. We still like the taste, but I think most of us understand, especially when talking to our grandparents or our parents, that the fruits and vegetables today don't taste like they did when they were children, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, with that being said, I encourage everybody to continue to eat their fruits and vegetables, but not every fruit or vegetable is the same. I recommend buying locally as much as possible, and those that you trust, the growers that you trust. Now, what I always hear is, well, I eat organic. Well, organic, by the scientific definition of organic, is an element linked to a carbon molecule. So I would say that they're the cleanest food, no pesticides, insecticides, herbicides, or fungicides. But from a soil standpoint, we still have a lot of work to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
here's where I want to share with our viewers as well as our listeners is that I'm going to show you the power of one drop, Vicky, of the ionic trace minerals K. So I'm going to set this plate of fruits and vegetables aside, and I'm going to pull, and this is just regular tap water.
Okay, he's got a little glass. He's got water in it. He put his electromagnetic
The
conductor.
there's nothing there, right?
Nothing there. Yep, no light.
I'm just
going to put one drop of the oh my goodness. And it's bright, bright light. Like, wow, that's amazing. I was trying to think, I wish we could power that to light our houses, right? Not have to rely on hydro.
But I would say to you, the greatest power source that we have should be our food and our water, right?
Yes.
But the powerhouse that we're personally in control of, I think, is the greatest benefactor of this knowledge when we put it in, right? Because what you might feel and I might feel and Ariadne might, it's personal. It becomes personal. So that's one of those challenges that we have for consumers is to make it personal. What is it you're personally challenged with? And then start the process of balancing. And let's find out what we're capable of. Now, here's one more little demonstration I would love to share that I think goes along with this is the pH. So pH, I think a lot of us have been taught it, but a lot of us have also forgot about it because we don't use it every day, right? So pH stands for potential hydrogen. And the way I like to simplify that, Vicky, is that we can live 2 to 3 weeks without food, 2 to 3 days without water, 2 to 3 minutes without oxygen, give or take, right? So the most important element of our existence is the element of oxygen, but we don't talk about oxygen much in our society. I think we talk more about calcium and magnesium and
protein.
Sodium, protein. So what we're looking at is just a basic pH test. We have a color-coded side. Anything, below 7 is considered acidic, which will turn yellow. Anything above 7 is considered alkaline. It'll have a different range for it, okay? So here's what I would love to share with people is that most people say, well, I take a multivitamin. Why should I focus on the trace minerals? Why would that need be there? Well, what I like to share is that we lose about 2.5 to 3 cups of body fluid a day, every single day, whether we like it or not, through respiration, perspiration, urination, and defecation, right? Not to mention what Ariadne mentioned earlier, which I think is a cause of a lot of disruption in our women's balance, and that's menstrual cycles and pregnancy. Okay. We know that, of course, it takes about 2 years, 2.5, 3 years to recover from pregnancy. So that tells you a little bit about how much it takes from you, right? So what I love to do is that I love to educate on the importance of balancing our water because we were never were we designed to live on bottled, filtered, distilled RO water. Okay. And it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, water industry. Here's what I find interesting today, Vicky, is that we drink more water than we've ever drank in mankind's history because we're keeping track of it. And yet 76% of our society is chronically dehydrated. Yeah. That tells me a little bit about what types of water we're choosing. So we choose water that is contaminant-free, but typically it's also element-free. Now, let me show you what we do here. I'm going to take what's called phenol red, which is the organic acid that tests for pH. And I'm going to just put in a couple of drops to test this water. Now, I travel all around the world, and I'm amazed at what types of water is available just out of the tap. Can you see how acidic that is?
Yeah.
So the water turned yellow.
Yep, turned completely yellow, which is acidic, okay? Now, what I want to do is I want to take control of that. I want to be able to put that balance back. And I'm going to show you that if I put just one drop, and that's the power of the drop, right? I'm going to put one drop into here. Vicky, what just took place?
So now it's becoming alkaline. It's turned red.
So it jumped. Yeah. It literally went from a complete.
Yeah, you put a drop of the trace minerals, and it became alkaline.
Now, here's what I want the listeners to understand, or the viewers, is that this is not a true depiction of our blood, right? Our blood is so closely monitored by our our body system. That's why it's called homeostasis, right? Nothing should change that blood. But here's what concerns me is that if we're drinking all of this, distilled or RO or, filtered water, there's one more robbing process within our bodies. So here's the thing I love to share is if these minerals are not in our water and they're not in our soil, they're not in our body. If they're not in our body, we call that deficiency. If we don't resolve that deficiency, that becomes dysfunction. But we as a society today are so reactive, we don't respond until it becomes a dis-ease, right? Until there's a name associated. And then there's two motivating factors that typically, come to the table. You know what they are? Fear and pain. Great motivators though, right? They motivate us to ask questions. And that's what we love about our jobs is that we get to share what we're capable of putting back. And when the results come in, guess who are sharing the results? The end consumer is sharing them with us personally. And that's when it becomes personal and it becomes real. And what I love to state is that it's repetitive. We can teach one another what we did and how we did it, and the results speak for themselves. Now, because we're talking about minerals and because they're ionic and because they're totally dissolved, our bodies don't have to go through a digestive process. And for those that are dealing with digestive disorders, which I think is one of the greatest pieces of the puzzle when it comes to deficiency within our society, remember that's 80% of our immune system and 90% of our mental health right there in that function. So that's what I love about, and again, it doesn't matter. I know that there's some listeners out there, some viewers saying, well, can I give it to my child? Can I give it to my pet? Can I give it to my plant? And the answer is yes, yes, and yes, by all means. But when it comes to children, I loved it. And this sounds really bad, Vicky, I know, because Ariane laughs at me every time I say it. I love to treat pets like infants. Treat them like, because they're already treated better than, I see some of these pet lovers that treat their pets better than they did their children,
Themselves. Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, themselves.
I like to take body weight. For every 5 pounds of body weight, focus on 1 drop. That should be the same for our children. For every 5 pounds of body weight, focus on 1 drop. So if we're dealing with a 10-pound infant, start with drops. But here's the one thing I want all consumers to understand is that if you take too much too fast, the worst case side effect is a laxative response. Now, I think everybody in creation right now needs a good trace mineral bowel flush right off the bat. I think our energy levels would be better. I think we would think clear. I think our digestive system would function better. But more importantly, I think we would be kinder to one another. I really do.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah. So those are those little visuals that
Thank you. Thanks
Yeah.
because that will stick with us, right? I'm all about visual. You were gonna say something, Ariane.
We talked about one of the benefits of ConcenTrace, which we don't think about because Dr. Starkey talked about, laxative effect, constipation, simply
Right.
that. I mean, it is such an amazing product to just help with bowel movement. We don't think about it. But again, the magnesium in it, one of those essential minerals to make, things function properly.
Yeah, and it's not adulterated.
No,
You're just adding water to it. So it's minerals that are already in the soil.
Which is
Exactly.
great point, by the way. You can put it into water preferably, but you can put it into soups, coffees, teas, protein shakes, smoothies. I don't care what you put it in as long as you're putting it in and consistent. I think the word consistency
Right.
is the number one word lacking in our health today because sure, we're eating and we're taking supplements, but there's still that inconsistency, especially amongst our consumers that they want the magic bullet, right? There's nothing magic about this. It takes time. It takes
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah.
It takes thought.
Consistency.
Yeah, consistency. I love to set, with the things, the devices we have today on our bodies, which are probably not healthy. We know that. But I think we could use them to our advantage to give us little reminders throughout the day.
Mm.
Because here's the one thing I share all the time. I love when the consumer makes it personal. They call up and they go, Dr. Starkey, are you sure there's no drugs in this product? And the sad part of that, Vicky, is that they assume that anything that comes with good feeling, lack of pain, or well-being must be a drug because that's the way we're educated as a
Hmm.
society today. But when we take it back to nutrition, right? I think the concept of more is always better is that's a man-made concept, right? Because in nature, we're taught that less is always best. But when I get to ask them, a follow-up question, it goes something like this: Why do you ask? Why do you ask if there's you know, any drugs in it? Vicky, they take my breath away as to what they're capable of, how their bodies are responding. And one of the key pieces of that is that they always ask the question, how? How is that possible? How is it that my doctor says that I was going to have to live with or cope with? Sometimes for the rest of, we hear this horrible sentence of you're going to have to deal with this for the rest of your life.
Well, okay, it's giving you trace minerals, but it's also giving you oxygen. And I like when you're saying that, I'm just thinking, so the NFL is going on right now. We have a Canadian team and an American team. And wouldn't that be great? Any sport athlete, like instead of these electrolytes or these sports drinks, add trace minerals. And electrolytes right now are very popular. So I think, and cost wise, this is so much cheaper. Like it's so much more economical. You're not getting the sugar in these electrolyte drinks or the caffeine in the sports drinks. But the other thing I was going to say, people are coming in because they've seen, oh, you put like a little piece of Celtic sea salt on your tongue, you're going to get minerals. And that, I'm not too sure about that one, but you might. But I would rather do this than put a piece of salt on my tongue.
Exactly.
What I was going to say too is that when these individuals call me up, you know what I find probably the hardest part of my job is 3 months later, after they get so excited, they call back and they go, I can't believe how bad I feel. And you know
Oh,
what I find out 99.9% of the time?
It's
They
not.
stopped. They quit. And the reason why they quit is they thought they were healed. Remember this. We never stop breathing, just like we never stop perspiring or urinating or defecating when we're doing it properly, right? Therefore, when should we stop taking or emphasizing these trace minerals?
Yeah.
never. But I mean, you could, like you were saying earlier, sorry, Ariana, you wanted to say something, but 40 drops a day, but you could cut it back after, you get to that place where you think, okay, this is good, and then just cut it back.
Sure.
I'd like to provide an example on that, like
Sure.
that touch on consistency. And one thing too that we need to talk about is taste,
I
concentrates.
was going to say that.
That's why
Yeah.
we talked about diluting it, and we need to talk about that. That's an important point, with this product because it is so pure. But I'd like to share my experience because consistency was the key. So at some point in my life, 3 years ago, I went through a separation. I was going through a lot of stress. And since the birth of my son, that's now 12 years old, I had eczema. And depending on the time of year, the level of stress, external stress of all kinds, it would flare up, it would diminish a little bit, it would flare up again. And from my previous work, when I met Dr. Starkey at an event, he told me all about the potential benefit and, the cofactor into, some enzyme that could help me, with diminishing the flare-ups and all that and the inflammation in my body. So at that point, I was trying so many different things and I had nothing to lose. I wanted to go away because it was raising even in my face.
Hmm.
So I decided, why not? And so he had mentioned at that point 40 drops in a day starts, a little bit aggressive, but, it was all over. So why not? And so I had to do it consistently, 40 drops in a day for 2 months before it diminished. but the consistency was the key. And once it started diminishing and literally went away, I could not believe it. It was just like, wow. But again, the consistency was the key. Now I only take 20 drops in a day. You
Mm-hmm.
know, 10 drops in the morning, 10 drops in the afternoon, not as much, but it's never come back. So
That's
this is
amazing.
just one example, and we have so many others. We even had recently at a trade show a lady that said she had asemic reactions, allergies season, and when she realized it came back, and she was not understanding, but because before she was taking our ConcenTrace and it had diminished so much, and then she realized I'm not taking my ConcenTrace with it. So just little things like that. Again, consistency is the key with this product for sure.
I was going to ask you that about allergies because a lot of people are coming in, so it's too much histamine, so it's bringing that down,
Exactly.
and so they're not reacting so much to, yeah,
And
the
so one of the
pollen.
key thing, again, we're going back to it's a cofactor. So
Right.
like Dr. Starkey would say sometimes, it is the cure to nothing, but it's involved in everything. So it is involved in every enzymatic process in the body. So it is one of these key that needs to be turned on. If it's not, then it diminishes. Everything else, every other nutrients that you consume will be best absorbed if it's combined with the minerals.
What a beautiful analogy. Thank you. I like that. Yeah, please say that again. It's a cure to
It's a cure to nothing, but it's involved in everything
everything.
in
Wow.
the
So
body.
true. And we're so lacking in minerals. But people don't realize that. And they
And
want the magic pill, but it's having those nutrients on a day-to-day basis that is going to correct. And you might have problems that you didn't even know you had, you know? So
yeah,
yeah,
totally.
yeah, yeah.
And I'd like to actually share another testimony that we had too, which this one was actually, it happened. I'll share one of the stories, but it happened to me recently, a second one. The big trend right now is, right, we're filtrating our water. You know, there's
Yes.
microplastic we don't want on our bodies. There's so many different contaminants. And sometimes it's just even for the taste. We want a more pure taste. We're in the, after COVID, we've learned to really purify, and clean everything. So we're down to cleaning our water. So I like to give the example. It's like milk in itself is not that bad. It's because we remove the enzymes, right? So when it's pure, the enzymes are still there. We're able to digest it. Over time, we can because we remove the enzyme the way we process it now. So going back to this gentleman that I met when I was at a store, he was on this new system of reverse osmosis,
Mm.
not really understanding that he needed to remineralize afterwards. So I'm standing at a store and the gentleman reached for a bottle of 240 milliliters of our ConcenTrace. And I asked the gentleman why he was actually consuming this product. I was just curious. And he said, "Oh, you don't understand. That product changed, actually saved my life. It was just putting the minerals back into
Hmm.
the body and removing that hypomagnesia,
Right.
magnesia. Yeah.
Well, nerve endings, right? Nerve
Yeah.
endings need minerals. And so people are coming in for B1, they're pre-diabetic, diabetic, neuropathy. I'm thinking of people coming in and, they could benefit from this for sure. Like just all these examples.
I
Yeah.
love what you're doing right now, Vicky. I can see those wheels spinning
Yeah.
because you special individuals that
Yeah. Yeah.
are,
Yeah.
and remember, just like she said, keep doing what you're doing, keep
Hmm.
taking what you're taking. But what these trace minerals bring is that ability to activate, regulate, and assimilate. So we're going to take that B1, B2, B12, or that vitamin D or that whatever protein, don't change. But just by putting the foundation, I think that once we put that foundation, you'll see the rest of that house of health come together and we can strengthen what we're doing.
Hmm. Hmm. So consistency, start slow, and then I would say like monitor, like you may not, like I'm thinking of myself, I don't really feel like I have symptoms,
Sure.
Mhm.
but to monitor. So is my sleep going to be better, in a month from now or 2 months from now? Not that it's bad now, but we don't always pay attention. And as the seasons change, we're on to the next shiny
Right.
coin kind of thing.
Right.
So this was a ton of information, and do you have any last thoughts or words for consumers? I mean, that was really great what you both just said.
Do we want to talk about diluting it? And some people, if they don't read the label that explains it, the reality is because it is concentrated liquid, right? That's what gives it all its power. We need to dilute it, and diluting it usually and starting slow, you can dilute it to taste. Obviously, what is the ideal to get 250 milligram of magnesium per day is to have 40 drops through the day. But it's better to have less but consistently taking it because, as we mentioned, it's part of everything. So try it at the beginning, a few drops, dilute in the water, and consumer can see, is that a taste that I like? The thing too is that we've filtrated our water for so long. We're not used to that mineral taste where it's actually natural. It should be that way. So we need to reprogram our taste bud for that type of water.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. Starkey, do you have any comments, last words?
I showed you the power of one drop. Can you
Yes.
imagine being consistent with the suggested? And what do you have to lose? I mean, you have everything to gain. And I hope you share it with Vicky for those that are here because we appreciate you letting us to be a part of this podcast with you, Vicky. And yet we would love to hear the outcome. We'd love to hear the personal insight as we share this with one another. And more importantly, I love your thought. Keep a journal. Keep a journal. Keep it personal. But when you resolve that concern that you're working towards, and this is one of those pieces, please share that with all of us. That's what keeps our wind in our sails and keep us fighting for tomorrow because heaven knows we need that balance.
Thank you. That's so beautiful. And I'm so honored to have both of you here sharing about ConcenTrace. And yeah, it's going to be front and center at my store, and everyone's going to get a bottle.
Thank you, Vicky.
Oh, you got
That
this
was-
issue? You need ConcenTrace. You got this issue? You need ConcenTrace. It's true. We need those minerals, and we're not getting them. And so, yeah, thank you. What a great, great presentation. What a great talk. And I appreciate both of you so much. And you know what? All the best going forward with this.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I was speaking afterwards with Dr. Starkey and Ariane about the importance of getting those trace minerals in our daily diet. And they're just not there. It feels like we just need to go back to basics, stop running around after the latest fad. It can be as simple as adding those few drops of ConcenTrace in our water daily, consistently over time to help our body function optimally. I don't know anyone who would not benefit from trace minerals. As always, to learn more, check out the show notes to stay in touch. As a small gesture that goes a long way, take a moment to hit the subscribe button, the like button, leave a comment, or share this episode with a friend. Every time you interact with this channel, you are helping it to grow, and it lets me know the content I'm sharing is important to you. Plus, I greatly appreciate it.